Yeah, you just have to. You have the volumes change in sinus spot is not sensitive enough.
Chris.
So I'm going to try to get Evan out before we get into the whole Kyle Larson stuff. So try to refrain from that while he's in here with us.
Just ask him, right? Just tell him that's what we're gonna talk about afterwards, and just tell him that's what,
Yeah.
just so he has a heads up.
Hey,
How's it going?
hey, welcome. Yeah, we got no guests today, so we're going to jump right into the Coke race from the top. So we'll cover the race and I guess get you out after that. That was the plan.
Cool.
Okay. We're going to try to focus on the Kyle Larson mess after you leave, though. So
Copy.
I don't know if you want to wade into that or not, but
I'll pass up on it
I
since
would
iRacing's
suggest
involved in
passing
it.
out of Evan.
Yeah.
Save your career.
yeah, let us deal with that. But
Let us nobodies deal with it.
all right, but thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, I'll get ready to start. David, you start first. Record.
Sorry
and
if
I'll-
I kept you waiting. We were just finishing up our IMSA broadcast.
Oh, no worries at all. We were just doing some testing, so we're good.
Cool.
Okay, David, record. All right, now I'm going.
You're listening to the iRacers Lounge podcast, where we discuss everything iRacing in a casual setting. Enjoy.
Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I am your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Chris Scales,
Good evening.
David Hall,
Hello.
Greg Hectus,
Hey, everybody.
and special guest Evan Pasoko.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, well, thanks for coming back. Making a regular thing of this to talk about those Coke races. And, of course, we had a great race this week at Richmond. Let's get into that. But first, Evan, before we get into the Coke race, tell us what are you doing these days? And what are you involved with that has to do with iRacing? Just give us a tidbit about how your life is going.
Yeah, so we were just talking before we went on here that we just wrapped up the IMSA iRacing Pro Series broadcast. So I've been taking a look at my schedule. I think the last night that I didn't have anything, aside from Easter Sunday, would have been April the 3rd. So obviously it's the Coke stuff on Tuesday nights, and that's in the broadcast booth. And then Saturday Night Thunder is going to be back this weekend for the Pro Invitational Series. So that'll be, Xfinity and Truck Guys. So I'm in the booth for that on Saturdays. I'm also doing the play-by-play stuff for the Subaru IRX All-Star Invitational Series. So that's every Friday night at 6 Eastern. And then, of course, I do my normal Monday night RSR broadcasts on RaceBot. And on Coke off weeks, it's the replacement series. So, that's kind of the in-the-booth stuff. I'm doing the court stuff on Court Vision in the booth on Wednesdays. So, 2/3 of the nights are taken up in the booth, but I'm also trying to stay busy because iRacing is so busy helping out behind. So I mentioned the IMSA event, obviously not in the booth for that one, but I was a spotter. So basically just helping the broadcast out, locate battles and checking telemetry and pit deltas and all that and kind of feeding it to Drew and everybody back at the office so they kind of know what we should, look at in the broadcasts. And then, when it comes to all of the Fox stuff, I'm managing the TeamSpeak stuff. So a lot of these drivers, the guys who aren't iRacing people, they don't really know how to work TeamSpeak all the time, get their mic set up, get around from different rooms. So I don't want to say I'm the babysitter, but I'm the handler who makes sure that everybody is, if Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon want to talk to somebody, I got to go pull them out of their driver radio channel, give them a mic test, and then get them up into the on-air room, move them back down. So I'll be doing that for IndyCar and for NASCAR for this weekend as well. So just kind of sticking my hand up and volunteering to do, just about anything these days.
Wow, that is a busy schedule. And man, do you feel like it's an oversaturation? I mean, I hear that from some NASCAR fans that it's too much. But what do you think?
Well, that was the concern, and right off at the top, when we first found out that we weren't going to have any on-track racing, everybody's like, let's go, let's get something. And it took a couple of weeks to get the ball rolling, and now, I mean, obviously everybody wanted to get involved. So we knew NASCAR was going to do something, because obviously NASCAR and iRacing have had a very good relationship, having the Coke Series in the first place. And that's happening. It was super cool to see IndyCar come over, and obviously they're now doing a couple of rounds of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. And so you have like your demographics or your styles of racing. You got NASCAR, you got IndyCar, you got the World of Outlaws stuff. That has been happening on Dirt Vision and on FS1, and we mixed that up this week for the Wednesday night iRacing, which I also helped out with. But I think that when you take the community events into it as well, because obviously all these companies are calling iRacing, all these different racing series, and being like, hey, we want to do something. So I think if you look at it just in the officially sanctioned stuff, you've almost got something for every night of the week, with a 1 or 2 nights off. And I think that's a good number. But obviously the community's itching to get involved. And a lot of these pro drivers who are parts of the community are also getting involved. So the stuff like the E-Truck Series Night in America and the Replacement Series that I mentioned, if you counted every organized event, I actually have a major iRacing events option on my Google Calendar. And if I click on that, there's like 2 to 6 events a night if you want it. So I think that it all depends on how much you're willing to take in. I think that NASCAR has their thing. If you're a fan of a specific series, I don't think it's oversaturated, because if you follow IndyCar on social, they're posted about theirs. NASCAR's posted about theirs, and iRacing's kind of sharing the big things. But if you're a person in the community, I think I can understand how it feels like there's so much going on, but you don't have to watch everything. I can't watch everything. I would like to, can't do it. I think that, having the option there to watch content if you want it is good.
It's something else. I don't think I ever dreamed it would ever be like this. But with the coronavirus thing and everything, and sponsors being involved and TV being involved, and NBC and Fox, and it's really driven it. And it's gotten to this point, like you said, there's content everywhere. If you're a race fan, it's like a dream come true.
It is, and obviously I like driving in a lot of this stuff as well. So watching the IndyCar stuff, it's like, hey, I should go drive an IndyCar on iRacing. Seeing some of this IMSA stuff we did today, it's like, hey, I should, go drive some GTE cars at Laguna Seca. So for me as well, as I've always been a big NASCAR fan, and I watch IndyCar and F1 and that stuff as well in the real world. But I think that seeing all of these different things is kind of like a racing fan's dream, because honestly, it's exposing me to more racing that the World of Outlaw stuff and some of these other events aren't always easily available on cable TV or online. A lot of it normally is behind a paywall, or you got to go out to the local racetrack, and sometimes it doesn't work with everybody's schedule. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of folks like me who are getting exposed to, and I think kind of finding out, hey, I like this, to various forms of racing that maybe they didn't closely associate with before.
I just got to say, when I saw the IndyCar race at Texas, and the product is the same as the real IndyCar race at Texas, and I'm literally sitting on the edge of my seat, I'm literally holding my breath, and I'm gasping every time, Tony Kanaan and, he and these guys are rubbing wheels and stuff. It just amazes me how entertained I was with that race. I was just blown away.
Yeah, there's so many ones I got to do, a couple of weeks ago, the throwback kind of Bomberito race where we did IndyCars at Worldwide Technology Raceway, and had a couple of the IndyCar radio guys on the broadcast with me, so that was cool from my perspective, seeing of course the IndyCar guys involved, and kind of on that point that I made about I'm getting exposed to some racing that I may not have followed quite as closely before. I mean, there's some of the IndyCar guys who are doing some of these NASCAR community events. Of course, a couple of the NASCAR guys are now, doing the IndyCar stuff. We saw Dale Jr. do last week. I think Kyle Busch is going to be racing this week at Twin Ring Motegi. So it's nuts. I'll agree with the point that you made a little bit earlier, that I think that when this whole shutdown started and we thought, hey, this could be a big moment for iRacing, our kind of sim racing community, is maybe more people will get to see, what we love and what we enjoy, and maybe they'll like it too. And I think that it's kind of blown way past the amount of attention that we could have expected.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get to the best racing of the week so far. I saw was the Coke race, so let's jump into it. So we got Richmond, fairly clean there. I kind of missed the beginning, but it looked like it was clean, and then a caution at lap 50. After the cleanup, it was Zielinski, Conti, Overland, and Tien in the top 5. And then shortly after that, Jarl Tien, who we talk about a lot tonight, he spins on lap 60 after Carl Keister barely gets into him. And I think that was kind of the theme of the night was, if you were on the outside and you touched the car on the inside, you're going to the wall.
Yeah, and this is something that I was talking with earlier on some NASCAR stuff that we're going to be putting out tomorrow, is that the way Richmond works is it's a fun track, but you do have to fight for the bottom. And you can kind of dare people to kind of bonsai you because you're going to be going wide down into 1 and down into 2. So that inside line's kind of wide open, and if you get stuck up on the outside, you're going to be trying to pinch down to make it a viable option, because if you really squeeze, you could stand some sort of a chance. And obviously, you get a little bit of a touch here, and when these cars break sideways with that short track package, you're not really going to have a good opportunity to catch it. So, I mean, there were flashes of great racing. Of course, nobody wanted a 16 caution flag race in a 200-lap event, but I think that there was certainly good racing mixed throughout and provided a lot of drama all the way through.
Yeah. And whoever was on the outside in all the incidents throughout the race always seemed to get the bad end of the stick. Lap 85, it was still green. The top 2 kind of broke away a bit. Bobby Zielinski, who was running up there, faded quickly from the front, clear to the back. It wasn't clear why. I think after the race he indicated he had some overheating problems from some slight damage.
Yeah, and we weren't sure, and we saw that there was some front-end damage on it, and I think that Justin had mentioned at the time that, maybe he's overheating a little bit, and at that point, we were really concerned because, I mean, Bobby had a really good car. He started up in second spot, thought that was going to be the end of his night, and lo and behold, through all the chaos, he actually ended up finishing 4th, so he was able to maintain the points lead, even though at that point it looked like it was going to be an ugly night because we're still early in the year. So you finish last in one of these, and even for the points lead, you drop down, 3-4 spots at minimum. So it was a really good recovery.
Yeah, and Chris Overland was leading, and I'm sure all the guys on his team were shouting for him. Good to see Chris up front. Jimmy Mullis was also having a great night, and he got around Chris Overland about lap 95 for the lead. And then on 98, caution, Logan Clampett. He was on the outside of a 3-wide kind of thing, but it looked like it might have been netcode. And I think we saw a couple of the cautions that could have been netcode.
And the tough thing as well is I think a lot of those 3-wide incidents is drivers really didn't know they were 3-wide. I mean, Richmond, that racing groove ain't wide enough for 2 cars. It's kind of wide enough for 1.5, 1 3/4, not 2, certainly not 3. So you'd have guys, you mentioned if you're on the outside, you're getting the short end of the stick. You can't just go way, way up and give them a ton of room on the bottom, because if you do, you're up and into the marbles and you're done. I mean, that's it. So, we had guys maybe cutting the margin a little bit too close for comfort than they, I guess, could have, and then obviously when you're leaning on each other like that, you can get caught out in those kind of incidents. But I do want to add on as well. I love to see Chris up front, and of course he gets up front, and I start running through the stats of this many starts and this many second place finishes, and he wants that win. And I always feel like I get excited and I want to talk about that. I know, but it's like the commentator's curse. So next time Chris Overland goes to the race lead, if I just totally do not acknowledge the fact that he's up there, it might be because I'm trying to reverse engineer the bad luck that he's had, because he's had fast cars on numerous occasions, and he's leading at halfway instead of the end.
Yeah, go slip angle. All right. Caution lap 112. Garrett Lowe was on the outside, I believe, got tagged by Jeremy Allen. Then back to green. The top 4 was Luza, Wallace, Novak, Schallner. Somewhere right before that, Luza came from, I think, mid-pack up into the top 10. In his interview afterwards, I think he said he wasn't sure how he just got up there, but he just did.
and he made me look good after at the start of the night I thought I was going to look real bad because I have not been doing real well in our little iRacing Esports Network fantasy, kind of picking the winners, and we're tracking the points for that. And, Luza, I just like the numbers, the fact that we had 3 consecutive back-to-back winners at Richmond. And, of course, Luza winning last year. I was like, all right, I like those numbers. Luza's fast. Why not? Does he go for 3 in a row? And then, obviously, we have to submit these picks a day before, so we don't know qualifying times. We can't look at that hour practice session, and we get in, and he's like 37th in qualifying. And I'm like, great, of course. I try to take the safe pick, and I'm going to look dumb. And, yeah, he drove through the field. He kept it clean, and I think that was the biggest thing. But he had speed the whole time. I think he just messed up his qualifying effort. I was concerned because he wasn't even top 15 in practice. But who knows? Maybe he was putting around and sandbagging a little bit in practice and then just missed the cue because he was fast, and we saw that when he got up front.
Oh, yeah, once he got out there. But back to green after that, top 4 was Luza, Wallace, Novak, Schallner. Again, good run for Schallner at that point, and to see him up there. And Zach, too. Zach's been trying to get his year going the right direction. Caution with 54 to go. It was Keegan and Schoenberg. They got into it way in the back. And I think my biggest surprise is, whoa, how is Keegan back there?
Yeah, and there was a lot of incidents as well. I would say more than half that were in the back. I mean, we had these points in the night where the race leaders are, kind of breathing down each other's necks. And it's the guys in the back wrecking. And Brian had a tough night, and that happens, and it was odd. Keegan just didn't have speed. I mean, he started, I think, close to 20th, and he finished outside of the top 20. I mean, he just didn't have it tonight, which is it's rare for somebody like him, who the last couple of years and this year as well, with a win, 2 poles, and all that we expect to. If he's not running up front, he's still a top 5, top 10 car. They just didn't have it this week.
Yeah, in the leader's pit, this is a key point of the race. And Jarl Tien stays out by himself. I think he wanted to say 16-lap tires or something. I'm thinking, this guy's nuts. There's no way he's going to hold it. But guess what? He held it for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, and at 50 to go, we kind of knew as well, even if Jarl doesn't stay out, you get a yellow with 50 to go at Richmond. Same thing, Bristol. You kind of have a hunch that, well, we're probably not going to run these 50 laps out to the end. We're probably going to have a lot of those restarts. And once upon a time, I think a couple of years ago in this series, drivers would stay out with like 60-lap old tires just to junk the field, like to just go slow on restarts, check everybody up and wreck them. That's not what Jarl was doing. I mean, he was hanging with them. Jarl started 14th, so it's not like he was a super, super slow car. Obviously had a disadvantage, and he went, 4, 5 restarts or whatever the number was with maintaining the lead because they kept wrecking behind. And at one point we were thinking, who knows, maybe he ends up in victory lane. But I think at the end of the day, it was a great gamble for him.
Yeah, I was surprised that he did it, and I was surprised that he was able to pull it off to an extent. Big wreck on a restart with the 48 to go. Ray and Kerwin touch, and a big wreck. Several cars involved. They actually did a nice. NASCAR put up a replay of that wreck on their social media. Big old pile up. Looks like somebody on the bottom just got clipped and just came up and took both lines out.
And that was tough because it was kind of right after we shuffled things up just a little bit with those pit stops. So there was a lot of fast cars in the back of the pack there, or kind of the mid-pack area. I wouldn't say that it was, all the way at the end, but there was a lot of really good race cars that got torn up in that one. Obviously, Overland, who had a good start to his night. Casey Kerwin was in that one, the 77. It's just some of the cars, the notable cars that we had kind of talked about on that first half of the broadcast that get involved. And you don't really get mulligans in this series. You're an incident like that, and even if it's a short track, it pretty much ruins your night, especially that late.
Yep, and then another quick caution on the restart. Jeremy Allen in another incident, but this time he looks like he completely missed a shift, and the accordion effect ended up bringing Garrett Lowe around, I think, down to the grass. But then another quick caution for Alex McCullum, and just 3 and 4 wide in that situation and got tagged. Then on the restart, Mullis gets into Tien, who's actually on older tires, and ends up spinning out again, no contact. Now down to green, 16 to go. Tien, Novak, Luza. 2 laps later, Luza finally gets back by Tien for the lead. And then caution, 13 to go with Dylan Duval and Phil Diaz way in the back to bring out the caution again.
Yeah, that the incident just before that one that you mentioned, the one with Mullis, was kind of a heartbreaker. And I said this on the broadcast, it's fun to see, NASCAR Cup Series guys have teams, NASCAR teams having teams, and, the esports orgs. But I think it's so unique that Richmond Raceway actually has their own team. And of course, talked with the president of the Speedway, Dennis Bickmeyer, on the pre-race show, and I chatted with him a little bit after as well on, they've got a dev team now, and they're expanding. And they had their guys, Novak and Mullis, running 1-2 at one point, and, it's your home race. Obviously, everybody wanting that to be a good result, and just a tough break for Jimmy. I know that Lewis didn't mean to get into him, and I'm in a group chat with the drivers, and Jimmy also told Jarl, I didn't mean to get into you either. It was just a case of kind of getting stacked up a bit into the corner, and it sucked. And then of course you mentioned the restart after that. Finally, when Lewis gets a couple of laps to kind of get up to Jarl, because Jarl was good on the restarts. That was the key. If he could get out those 3-4 car lengths ahead of whatever he was doing, he could hang on for 1-2 laps. Of course, lap 3 after the restart comes around, and once Lewis got to the bottom, I think Jarl knew he really didn't have a chance to hold him off.
Yeah, and he had the newer tires too. So Conti was hanging in there in the top 5 as well as Lion, and those guys were running good. But back to green, 7 to go. Caution, Alfala involved. He was tagged by Bob Bryant. He had nowhere to go at all. I saw his in-car replay after the race, and it was like he's just driving along, and all of a sudden the car spun out underneath him.
And that's kind of goes back to, what I talked about earlier, when you get some of these side-to-side contacts, and, once the car kind of gets knocked, you don't really have much of a chance to hang on to it, especially, the slow speeds. You can't really scrub anything off to try to slow it down. You're basically just sideways at that point. And, Ray is another interesting story so far this year, because he came into the night in a playoff spot. Of course, everybody knows the struggles that he had last year, not even making the top 20, having to go back down to the Pro Series. A different car in the Xfinity cars wins the Pro Series championship. And I'm thinking into the night, hey, he's P8. Is Ray Alfala back? He's now 15th. He's closer now to being out of the series again than he is to being into the playoffs. And I know we're only 5 weeks in, but again, he lost 7 spots in 1 week. And Chris Overland, who I talked about having a great night, lost 8 spots in the points. He's down to 31st. I mean, one incident is all it takes to not only derail your race, but, to derail a whole year.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to how competitive this series is. I mean, it's so deep, the talent, and I really believe this is the most competitive series out there, real or on iRacing.
Yeah, and we talk about this every year. The stock come in, and the thing I love is because of the relegation. We don't have guys, driving in a car where maybe they don't deserve to. Financials and none of that is has no say in how drivers, I guess, get into the lineup and who sits where. You got to be fast.
Yeah, it's performance based.
Yeah, and now, though, and this is the thing that we've talked about a lot, is, the guys that are in the series now, when they started sim racing, I really don't think this was the goal. Even though this series has been around since 2010, it's a hobby, you get good at it, hey, maybe let's run for the DWC. But now there's so many people on the service, not just joining this year, but the last few years, who have watched this series grow, who maybe saw this series on TV last year, and now this is a goal. So we think the Pro Series and Road to Pro is competitive now. Give it another year or two. It's not going to get any easier from this point on.
Oh, yeah. It sure will. So restart with 2 to go. It was Luza, Lion, Conti. Luza got a huge restart, and then another yellow from another wreck in the back. And then the second green-white checker attempt, Luza gets another great restart. The battle was for second between Conti and Lion. Luza wins, man, 3 in a row. Let's go ahead and hear your call to the checker.
is allowing Ryan Luza to pull away. He's won the last two. He's going to go for 3 in a row in 2020. Ryan Luza, second straight win at Richmond.
Well, he's the guy to beat,
I'm
right?
a nerd of numbers, and that's why I picked him. I think it's not only because of the history of Richmond, who we have now seen for the last 8 years, 4 different drivers go back-to-back. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and now Luza, 19 and 20. But it was the fact that he was going for 3 in a row. He's the first driver to win 3 races in a row in this series since 2013. That's 4 years before he even, started a race in this series. And now he has 15 wins, which is second all-time of the 51 different drivers that have won a race in this championship to Ray Alfalo with 24. I know that's a long way to go, but that's mighty, mighty impressive for the rookie in 2017 who, won the championship at his first time out. He's on fire. And it doesn't matter what car he's in either, too, apparently.
Yeah, Kyle Busch of the Coke Series, I want to say. But no, he's on fire. I just stack him up is what I told him. Just keep getting those W's and it'll all work out. Let's talk post-race, a few notes. We did hear from Bobby Zalinski about his overheating, why he dropped from P2 to P39. But I wanted to say he finished 4th, and I want to say he probably passed more cars than anybody.
Yeah, and he also probably got passed by more cars than most people, too. He had quite the night. We touched on it early. The overheating issue and whatever it was to drop to the back. But, we saw Ryan Luza go 37th to the race win. So Bobby getting back in traffic, isn't impossible. But you got to figure he had those issues a good portion into the race. So the speed helped him, but I think a little bit of luck. Because when you get back there into the gross stuff, that's where a lot of the yellows were happening. I guess they don't ask how you did it. It's how many, in terms of wins, and I guess that'll apply to Bobby Zalinski. They don't ask where you were at halfway. They ask where you were at the end, and he gets the good points, maintains the points lead, but Luza with those 3 wins now, only 15 points behind him at the very top.
Okay. And then the other thing that was noted after the race, Justin Malillo from the RacingExperts.com notated that Ryan Luza had a black car, and he won in a black car, and there was no paint job on the broadcast. And we were kind of asking around about why, and it turns out he loaded into the wrong manufacturer. He loaded in a Chevy instead of a Ford, therefore he had a black paint.
And it's so easy to do that as well on iRacing. If you do, it's funny because I race the Chevy normally. And every time I go into a session and to select of the 3 Cup Series cars, it's never sitting on the Chevy like I chose last time. So I always, and listen, if I choose the wrong car, it doesn't matter. I'm racing hosted. Nobody cares about that. Of course, Williams Esports missed out from a bit of TV time, but I saw in a couple of the post-race articles that people actually went back and just screenshotted that car, kind of did it post-race, a little bit of magic to make it look like that was the car on track. But he didn't mean to load in as a Toyota, but he did. Car was just as fast, though. That's why I said doesn't matter what he's in, he's fast.
So let me ask you this. Is it on the to-do list of all the Coke drivers to load up a paint, the trading paints for every manufacturer, just in case?
Well, it's funny because we had this issue the first week of the Pro Invitational Series when that was at Homestead, that one of the drivers participating said that this is the manufacturer I'm going to be running. And then they joined as a different one because they don't have a full-time ride, and I forget who it was. And we're sitting 30 minutes to live on Fox, and this person doesn't have a paint. And, of course, you can't change your car. So we had Cisco, while we're sitting there waiting to go live, throw that paint scheme into Photoshop, slap it onto a different manufacturer, and go. And the thing is, these paints have to be pre-approved. So when the teams and the drivers and, whoever is in charge of that for the respective teams sends it into iRacing, they have to be approved, I think, up to 2 days before. And we don't actually run trading paints. It's all, on the local servers and on your computer for the people who are operating our cameras. So I think maybe the quicker solution is to put a sticky note or a checklist on the monitor and put that as part of your, have your spotter or your crew chief remind you when you load in. Make sure you're in the right car because it's super easy to mess up.
I actually just did a set of 3 paints for the Pacific Majors this weekend for our All-Star event, and they were matching schemes, but the lines don't all line up the same. The cars have slightly different shapes, so that can be tricky trying to pull the paint from one to another.
It was tough. I don't know. Cisco had to work some magic, and it's funny because like the Chevy last year, this was a big issue we had. Is obviously we made all these cars, and then we updated to the ZL1 1LE, and this was for Coke and for the Pro Invitational, where it was just a new nose, but it changed the front fenders, and then the side skirts on the sides are like bumped down a bit. They don't actually connect to the side panel of the car, and that was a lot of hours that had to go into. You look at the car. Very, very minimal difference Chevy to Chevy, let alone, Chevy to Ford and Ford to Toyota. But hats off to the painters because I know they've been super busy this month.
Yep. And then one other note on different paints. The 1 and the 42 in the Coke race, Steve Sheehan and them running iRacing colors. It looks like there was a tweet from Beast Racing indicated they were helping support these drivers who were formerly driving for the Kyle Larson Esports.
Yeah, and so they had the iRacing branded Chevys on board, and I'm not sure what the timeline will be, but we'll probably see an official team support for them shortly.
Yeah, and we'll get into the Kyle Larson stuff later. Let's look at the points going into your next Coke race. What track we got next?
So we're headed out to an exciting one. Obviously this season sees some tracks get dropped year to year, and it kind of fluctuates. And we didn't have this on the calendar last year, but we're going back to Dover into the Monster Mile. And you think, okay, Bristol, Richmond, and Dover, that's a rough and tough trio right there before we get out to our longest one of the year early in May at Charlotte. But honestly, the last couple of races at Dover have been pretty clean. In 2018, it only had 3 yellows, obviously a mile in length. It's still a scary racetrack to go at on, but you do have a bit more space. And we're looking forward to it. I think the numbers will show that Homestead rolled over to Bristol, rolled over to Richmond. I think are all, consecutively the most viewed online streams of the Coca-Cola series in series history. I don't know the numbers from this Tuesday quite yet, but hopefully less yellows and more excitement. Dover's a fun track.
Yeah, and then points, Bobby Zielinski, the leader. Ryan Luza's second, 15 back. Then Keegan Leahy, Garrett Lowe, Nick Ottinger, who's quietly running top 5 in points. Good job for him. One thing that notes out when I look at the points, the one column, average finish. And as I look down the list, we're talking mid-teens, 15th, 17th, 19th, 20th. And what does that tell us? Well, throughout these 5 races, everybody's having bad weeks.
Yeah, nobody's having, perfect. And that's why I think somebody like a Zelensky, or Garrett Lowe, or, kind of quiet under the radar Garrett, have been doing so well. And I think that's the big thing. I noticed as well that Zach Novak jumps way up. He's in probably the best position that he's been in all season.
10th.
After he came into last week. Yeah, he's up to 10th in the points. So that was a jump of 8 for him. But Ashton Crowder, Brad Davies drop out of the top 8. Of course, I mentioned Jimmy Mullis, who ran up front. He drops down to 16th. And again, it's still early, so you have one bad week and it kicks you way down. But there's some cool names up in there with Nick Ottinger, Nichols, and Clampett, kind of the 3 underdogs or surprise drivers, if you would, and Garrett Lowe as well, who, tip of the hat, has been an incredible driver this year for the Wood brothers, stepping in for Ray.
Yeah. So good luck to those guys as they go into Dover. Evan Pasoko, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about the Coke race, and we'll catch you on the next race.
There's a lot of iRacing, so I'm sure we'll see you guys soon.
All right, we'll see you on the track later, Evan. All right, Greg, let's talk the next one, NASCAR. Let's talk pre-race. What happened on the pre-race stuff?
So, I guess this was like the Landon Castle hosted a 60-lap race at
Oh, yeah, this wasn't the official race. This was, an Easter, hey, we're going to run a race anyway.
Yeah, so before we get into this, because this is a heavy topic with all the stuff that went around this, just note that what we're talking about here is obviously sensitive. It's a sensitive subject, and we're just offering opinions. We're not, this is all our views on opinions. We're not going to get um, really opinionated here, but it's just, we're not here to argue and do stuff about it. We're just here to talk about the information on what had happened.
Yeah, and before we get into Kyle Larson, which I'm sure everybody has heard about, let's talk about the race a little bit. It was 60 cars at Monza. Podium Esports did the broadcast, and the first thing I want to say is, man, they were blinking a lot. There was a lot of blinking going on.
Now, is this, I was thinking back because I came in a little bit late to this and I saw a lot of the blinking. Do you remember when we had that problem at Daytona when the cars would all bounce, or not Daytona, Talladega, when they would bounce, and
Right.
then we were having that problem? I'm wondering if this had to do with that again, where it was every car was slamming the track and it was having a data problem.
It almost to me looked like the guy who was doing the streaming or whatever, he was having an internet problem.
That's what I was thinking. It looked like, yeah, it was on the streamer's end, is
Were
kind of what I
the
was thinking.
drivers complaining about it? Because remember when we hosted a server and accidentally hosted it in the Netherlands?
If they were, if it was blinking as bad as the broadcast was, they wouldn't have been able to race.
Yeah. They were able
Okay.
to, yeah, I don't think the drivers were
So you
seeing
think
that.
it's just
We were
streaming?
seeing
Okay.
it.
Yeah, they didn't seem to notice it at all. It was just on the stream.
So
maybe
that
just
was on
the power
Podium
computer.
and those guys probably, but there's not a lot you can do when it's like that, you know? I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, and it's crazy trying to come in to watch that when you haven't watched it right from the beginning because of how much was going on, and there was so much information you're trying to get back after coming in late.
Well, there's no damage and resets. Well, no, I mean, they don't need resets because there's no damage and there's no cautions. And so it was just a matter of who didn't wreck is really, or who didn't wreck the less, because everyone was getting involved in something eventually. And it was carnage everywhere. It was crazy. Just like a normal Monza race on the oval. But it was so much fun to watch. But the biggest, coolest part for me was Alan Bestwick in the booth and Alex Hayden from MRN in the booth. And man, I mean, just to hear Alan Bestwick calling some NASCAR names out again is like, man, just reminiscent for me.
Well, and it's kind of like it's a different perspective. We're bringing in more of these guys that are actual race announcers or deal with race stuff, and they're bringing it into this world, and they're if anything, they're teaching as well to doing this and how to give their opinions on all these and what they're seeing out there. And I thought the way that they moved back and forth between both of them, adding them into the broadcast, it was perfect for it.
And they were kind of doing an MRN style call like David likes, where, Alex Hayden always was doing, turn 2 in the back straight, and then whoever was doing 3 and 4 and so forth. But Alan Bestwick is my hero. I mean, he was the best as far as calling NASCAR races and IndyCar races for that matter, as far as I'm concerned. So really happy to hear him on a broadcast. I'd love to hear that continue. The winner was, out of all the people from the different real motorsports series, it was a regular iRacer who won the race, who somehow, they were some kind of qualifying race where you could kind of get in on a couple slots. And so the guy who won is called Justin Botelho, and he's a streamer apparently on Twitch.
He did a really good job managing traffic there near the end too, because there were some scary moments with a couple laps to go where he was coming up on groups that were fighting and then crashing, and he was able to avoid. I remember one where he was coming down, I think it was the backstretch, and he just had to go to the inside and stuff. It was crazy.
Okay. And as far as after the race, let's kind of get into that. So if you were just watching the broadcast, you didn't really know what happened as far as what happened on the driver chat and on the streams and so forth. So after the race, on the social media, word got in that Kyle Larson had uttered a racial slur over the driver's channel in Sim. So we've all talked on that channel where we can talk to other drivers. And we've all accidentally talked on that channel when we went to be in TeamSpeak or perhaps a spotter channel or something else. And that's basically what happened if you watch the video. It appears Kyle is trying to talk to his spotter, and he says the racial slur like in reference to talking to the spotter as kind of a joke. And he actually did it over the driver's chat. And then Anthony Alfredo responded in the driver's chat, "Hey, Kyle, everybody just heard that, by the way, to let him know." And he was like, "Oh, no."
He knew he was kind of done after he did that, from the way it sounds, the aftermath of some of the things that came out later.
Well, there's precedent. I mean, Jeremy Clements was suspended as well indefinitely for something similar, that he spoke to a reporter that wasn't even broadcasted. And so for this to be out on the social medias, in video form, and everybody saw it, it was actually trending on Twitter Sunday night. You had mainstream media picking it up, and it just went viral pretty much.
And then the aftermath the next day is, first things that were started was he was getting suspended by everything, or
The
his
team,
team,
NASCAR, sponsors.
and then it took a turn for the worst in the afternoon when one sponsor's dropped, which was his First Credit was the first one I think that went.
And then they all did.
Credit One.
Or Credit One, sorry, my bad. And then they all just started going, and then that was after he had posted
An apology,
his Twitter
yeah.
page an apology. You could see in his face he was very emotional about it. He did, in my opinion, he did have regret in what he did. Obviously, this is not a word that should be uttered from anybody on this planet should be uttering that word at all. And he showed remorse from what I can tell from it, and then after that it just seemed like his whole world started changing with dropping the sponsors, and they dropped then NASCAR suspended him indefinitely, and then the team the next day
Fired him.
iRacing as well is suspended him
that's
indefinitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about that specifically. I mean, iRacing put out on social media a message that said they suspended him indefinitely. So first of all, aren't suspensions supposed to be private and not like publicized? Or is this a special circumstance because of the nature of the deal?
Well, my question is, okay, yes, he has done this act, this happened, and they're saying indefinitely. When he repairs, like, is he going to get a forgiveness from iRacing eventually to come back like any other one of us? If we said something like that, you get a month off or 2 months off. It's not a permanent ban.
It's just indefinite, yeah. No, I think I believe that iRacing would reinstate him if NASCAR reinstates him.
So basically, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the World Outlaws is the only one so far saying he can come back, and they said that they would have him back if he underwent sensitivity training. But I think this, the way it came across, it came out as it wasn't a hateful comment. It was more of an ignorant comment, and I think he is definitely going to learn his lesson through this. I think he'll have a career back. It's just going to take years and years, and yeah, it sucks that he came in iRace, but like you said, I think he'll be able to, after a bit, he'll be able to, ask for forgiveness.
Well, and I think it serves a lesson to, even I think in our chat we've been talking about it all week, but just in general, you don't use words like that and stuff, but you also don't know who's listening. There's so many things being recorded, and with the different radio channels, and things can happen where you accidentally press the wrong button, and these guys are professionals, and they're not. I'm gonna say they're not you and I. I mean, they're held into a higher standard. So we were having the argument last week that why Bubba Wallace should can lose a sponsor because of something like this, because I think Bubba realized that they represent that sponsor or anything 24/7. It Once they sign on, that's what they get. That's part of their job, and that's why everything started snowballing when the sponsors and NASCAR, their hands were tied. They had to do everything that happened was to them was what had to happen to save their brands and do it all.
So let's talk about that just briefly, because I want to go down that road, because the NASCAR fans, their reaction to all this week is very negative, and a lot of them are supportive of Kyle and whatnot, but I just have a problem that our society, that you can lose your job over one word. It shouldn't be like that, but I don't know how we've gotten to this point, but I mean, I wish it wasn't that way.
Well, and I'm not, like I said, I want to see him recover and be able to drive again. I don't believe a word in something that you do should define your life. He's a great race car driver. He made a mistake. We all make mistakes. We're all taught to be. We teach our kids that you can have forgiveness. Not all things can be forgiven very easily, but he made a mistake. He's paying for it, and I think in a couple weeks, months, maybe not saying it'll blow over or people forget about this, but something else will be there, and he will be on the road to recovery, and maybe someone gives him a shot again. But it's such a difficult situation because it's just a word that we all know. That word goes back generations. That sets such a negative word, and it's hard to say it, but
It's a word that carries.
Don't say it.
no, I'm not saying saying
It's a
but
word
I'm
that
saying,
carries 500 years of history.
yes, and there's been talks. I don't know if we didn't have covered in this, but Bubba Wallace put out a statement today, which read very well, and it articulated his feelings towards it, because, like he said, he feels like he's a spokesperson because of his ethnicity for it, or his ethnicity. So he seems like he understands that that accidents happen, but he just doesn't know why that this was in anybody's vernacular, and it shouldn't be in anyone's vernacular, right?
Yeah. It was a mistake.
As a teacher, I've had to get on to kids for the same thing, and I can tell you what's happening. This I don't feel like this was coming from a racist perspective for Kyle. This pop culture, a lot of people brought this up, and it doesn't excuse it. I want to jump out in front and say I'm not saying this is an excuse. This is just a what's happening. A lot of white kids especially that are growing up in tough situations these days, their music is, they listen to African American influenced music. That's what they like to listen to, and it's laced with that word. And everybody says, well, it's okay for Africans to say that to Africans, but those kids that love that music, they're wanting they want to be a part of that tribe in a way, and they end up trying to use it to try to be cool. And that's how this kind of came off of me. Doesn't mean it's right, but that I know that's kind of what it spawned from. Is just it's coming from the African American R&B, not R&B. I'll get the rap culture likes to use this word. Well, R&B doesn't really go there as much as rap, but they use the word a lot. And there's some good arguments made on why it's kind of like you're calling. I can call my brother whatever name I want, but if somebody else comes after him, we're going to have a problem. So that's a pretty good justification. But especially some of the younger white kids who don't know the history as well, and didn't they want to use the word just to be cool. They're not actually trying to be racist, but the word does just carry too much historical pain that it really needs to be just stamped out.
I think the other troubling fact here is he used the word, but seeing people talk about it on Twitter and all the social media aspects that he's racist. Well, you have no idea what he is. You don't know him. He said a word. We all use words that we don't mean, and it doesn't define us. And just because he used this one word doesn't mean he's a closet racist or anything like that. He just screwed up. And there's a reason that it's maybe been in his vernacular. Maybe he's used it other times. But
he's probably heard it hundreds of times on the music he listens to.
Maybe. Yeah, it's just he screwed up, and he's obviously paid a more price than any of us could ever think of paying right now for it, for using it. And it's cost him his career right now, and he's got a family and things too, and it sucks in both aspects because it should have never happened at all.
So I want to back up to something you said about these guys know they're being recorded and streamed and whatnot. So even though Kyle thought he might have been talking on a private spotter channel, the video has his face in it, and you can see his lips moving. And surely he knows there's a video camera pointing at my face that's literally streaming onto my Twitch right now.
Well, it's a word that's in his vernacular, so it came
right.
out
So it
without
slipped.
even thinking about
Right.
it.
It's one of those things that kind of slipped, and
Which means he's using it regularly.
It's no
Rap
different than
music.
us. It's
not a
no different
one-time
than a
mistake.
swear word, right? We try in front of our kids, knowing our kids are around, not to swear, right? But we still do it sometimes, right?
right.
I generally, on the podium, don't cuss, but they've heard it a couple of times because, we know I've gotten in trouble in iRacing.
Okay, so let's keep moving. So mainstream media picked this up. It was on NBC News. It was on Business Insider. I saw it all over the place. So it's the only sports story going on. There's no other sports going on, so it got picked up by everybody. Let's move on from Larson. I found a podcast I like called Fast Talk, and none other than Hermie Sadler was on this week, and I really like him, and he's an old school NASCAR racer, and he had a great quote about what's going on with iRacing, and I want to read it. It says, "Prior to the crisis, I didn't know nothing about iRacing. We started to see it on TV, and it's all over the internet and all over everywhere, and my brother has got one of those, what do you call it, rigs at his house, and he started doing some of that, so it won't be long. I'll probably be trying to test his machine and see what's up, that I've really enjoyed it, and I've been pleasantly surprised by the entertainment value of it as a way we can still get together virtually and watch racing and talk about racing. And one positive that's coming out of this is I see a lot of younger people in the younger generation not only competing, but talking about racing and iRacing. So maybe on the other side of this coronavirus stuff, when we are able to go back to the racetrack, the younger generation we're trying to reach, maybe we can get them to the racetrack, and that will be an important piece to grow our fan base.
Wasn't Elliot just on a show recently as well?
Yeah, he was on.
Door Bumper Clear?
Door Bumper Clear, and he was with William Byron, because William Byron's getting him into it to get his. I think he tested on William Byron's rig to see how it was, and then Elliot got it, and then now Elliot's son has been driving it like every day. He's been saying on his page.
Yeah, now Herbie wants to try it. So pretty cool to hear an old timer from NASCAR talk positive about iRacing, especially after the Kyle Larson event. That kind of put everything in the negative light.
Now, talking about this, just the thought in my head when you read things like this, trying to get the younger generation to the track and doing things like that, do they highlight, like obviously I'm hoping someday down the road that they use the eNASCAR series to go along with the NASCAR series on a weekend somehow. So like the Truck series is always a Friday night, the Saturday is Xfinity, and the Cup Sunday. Do they run a Thursday night to kind of start off the week or something like that, like just to do it? Maybe that's where you start involving the generations. Or do we start seeing more of these simulation setups at these tracks to get people doing things with iRacing?
Well, the Coke Series already makes a good midweek event, being it's on the Tuesday, whereas the stuff on the weekend needs to be in the weekend for the in-person fans. So there's been a lot of clamoring for the last year or two on SiriusXM and a lot of other NASCAR talk channels about moving some races to the middle of the week to try to get that primetime viewership. Well, iRacing can go ahead and hit that market without having to have a bunch of fans who travel 400 miles to watch a race drive in the middle of the week.
Well, remember though, when we come back to racing, though, they're going to be they're being forced to do midweek real races, just to get the entire 36 race schedule in. So I don't know if there's going to be TV time or time to do any iRacing, because they're going to be doing NASCAR races every 3 days.
Well,
definitely won't be time for the real life drivers.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is we were supposed to see those possibility of Wednesday night things next year when they were supposed to have a whole new schedule idea, but obviously that's going to be pushed back another full year because of what's gone on this year and the lack of losing that car, the next generation car, for next year as well. So we're going to actually get the Wednesday night stuff if they go back racing this year because of circumstance and being forced to, not them trying to make a scheduled event to make it look like a Wednesday night one.
One more quick note about the Coke tie into the NASCAR. I'd love to see where they say, you know what, we're going to take the champion of the Coke Series and get him in a truck ride. It's an automatic, you're in NASCAR if you win the Coke Series. Wouldn't that be something? And that could really be a feeder series, so to speak.
The problem is as well as we all do here, it's driven by money, and if that person doesn't have a way of bringing a sponsor on it, they're not going to put them in the car.
Truck sponsored by iRacing and NASCAR.
I mean, between Coke and NASCAR and everybody involved, I could see that as the next level to take it.
It is driven by money, but there's still a slightly separate skill set about sitting in a real car versus the sim.
There'd be a lot of training to get used to doing G-forces and actually feeling the way the car. There's two different sides of this. I could see some of the skills translating, but just getting someone putting them in a car, it's kind of like transferring from any other series, like a NASCAR driver going to an F1 car or something like that. Certain things just don't translate.
They put what's-her-faces in trucks.
Right.
I said any iRacer could do better than what was her name?
What's her face? Oh yeah.
That last girl, the
Decker.
one that was obviously probably a yoga pants but couldn't drive.
The one that are you talking about the rich?
Oh, the one with the husband who's mad all the time?
Yeah, the one with the boyfriend with the big mouth. Yeah, I mean, she is just bad. She was like half a second off. Like any iRacer with a 3,000 I rating could have done that.
Be careful or her husband will come after you.
Yeah, watch out. All right, let's keep moving. We got a message from Ryan Vargas, who's an Xfinity driver. He's putting together another event, the E-Trucks Rumble at Richmond, which is tonight, actually, I think. Yeah, it's going on as we speak right now.
Yeah, it's going on right now.
So, man, they just never end. And then we got odds. Check this out for the Cup race at Richmond. But some of the odds I saw, I don't see it on the screenshot, but I saw it before. Like you could bet on who was going to rage quit first. You
Somebody
could
probably will. It is going to be rough this week. They thought Bristol was rough. Richmond is going to be a nightmare if these guys don't practice.
It wasn't fun last night.
I think they removed it. They must have removed it, but there was also a bet of who was going to utter a racial slur first. I mean, all this crazy stuff.
That's in bad taste.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it got removed. But this is a sports betting website. It was crazy to see that. Then we got updates from, well, I guess I don't know if it's NASCAR or iRacing or Fox or everybody involved, but they are limiting this Sunday's Richmond race to 26 entries. And some butthurt ensued, including Michael McDowell, who actually procured a sponsor for this iRace, and he was not invited. So what do you guys think about them changing this? I mean, they keep changing the rules of this series, like who's invited and who's not, and who's eligible and who's not. It's getting tiring to me.
I'd rather have a few short races that went to like a 25 lap, 26 driver race or something like that to give these guys a chance to race their way in. And just do super short races and get the whole thing in within an hour or so.
I just don't know why they would even exclude anything. Like, to be honest, who's to say? Do we know what the Michael McDowell sponsorship is? Who's to say that sponsor doesn't all of a sudden latch onto something here in iRacing and want to throw money at iRacing? Why would you turn it away?
Does McDowell have a regular cup ride?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it don't make any sense at all.
I think all cup drivers should be eligible. If you're a cup driver, one of the 40 cup drivers, you should be in the race.
Like, I don't know if we have an entry list or something, but McDowell did make a point that said the 5 least experienced drivers are still in that race. Like, I thought maybe they were cutting some of the stuff out. Like, I had this conversation with you, Mike. I thought they were cutting out some of the things that have gone on in the last couple of weeks, and maybe they're centering out some guys that have been causing some stuff.
Well, guess who one of the guys who got cut? Dale Jr.
And we figured that might be because of him not being an actual cup driver, but he'd be the one that draws the most people in general.
Well, it could be that he's an NBC guy and this is a Fox race. Somebody was speculating about that since he works for NBC, but it's hard to say. Now, since this, Bob Pockras put out a tweet about an hour ago, I don't have the link, that said they've had so much feedback about the reduced field. They're having some kind of qualifying heat race where they're going to have a few guys be able to try to race their way in.
Was Parker Kligerman out of it too?
No, he was on the list.
So that NBC thing wouldn't make any sense then.
And he does not have a cup ride this year.
But
Okay.
he also is an NBC broadcaster.
So here's what Bob said. He said, qualifying races Sunday for Virtual Richmond is a last chance qualifier. 2 drivers advanced and 2 more provisionals are going to be chosen by Fox. Lineup for the main event will be set by 2 laps of qualifying before the main event. Telecast is 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday on Fox and Fox Sports 1.
My guess is if Dale Jr. doesn't win 2 of those spots, he's the 3rd one if he's racing. That's what I would gather from it.
I just don't see how they would actually say, hey, Dale, don't come. I'm wondering if it's his decision.
Well, he was kind of the way he explained some stuff on his podcast this week. He kind of seemed. I mean, he was disappointed, obviously, that he even had to talk about it on his podcast. You could hear it with it, but I don't know. Maybe he didn't want iRacing to take any of the penalties. He didn't want NASCAR to take any of the penalties from what Kyle did. He just saw that. I don't know if he was thinking that maybe he just doesn't need to be part of it right now.
Well, that was what I was concerned about Sunday night after all this happened. I was thinking, and it's over. All these drivers, their teams, they're going to pack up and head south because they're not going to take the risk of losing their careers by accidentally uttering something over a radio on a video game. And that was kind of the scare I think a lot of people had. And then when they had announced the reduced race of only 26 entries for the Cup race, you're like, oh God, here we go.
Well, and the way the IndyCar has been going kind of smoothly with what they're doing, it kind of looks the NASCAR seems like it's having a couple issues, and then the IndyCar is just in the background doing its own thing.
Yeah, and I think Jenna Fryer on Twitter, who writes for the Associated Press, she does motorsports for AP, she put on Twitter, looks like you and several others have been uninvited to what started out as a fun race but is quickly being way too much drama. Thumbs down iRacing is what she said. Thumbs down. And so the whole thing of them limiting the field came across very negative. I mean, the fan base did not like it.
Now, Mike, okay, we don't know who made those decisions with all this stuff.
Probably not iRacing, yeah.
It was probably Fox.
Jenna Fry making that thumbs down iRacing comment. You're coming into our world of racing. Like, this is something that we were doing. Your professional drivers are supposed to be professional drivers, are coming in, bringing media in, and have changed the way that things are going on. But the stuff that's going on is caused by professional drivers. Do we not see the correlation? iRacing is the platform, but there's professional drivers that are screwing up, and they're going, and this is where you got to be afraid iRacing's taking a beating for it for no reason. And that's why maybe iRacing's trying to save themselves with some of this. Is it their decision? Is it NASCAR's? It's so hard to figure it out, but you got to remember, this is, we're not going to play on the NASCAR tracks. They're coming into iRacing stuff.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you go on, I did this. So if you go on NASCAR's Facebook page and you pull up any post of this week, any post, anything, and you look at the comments, the fans are negative about iRacing. I'm not watching another iRacing. I support Kyle. I can't believe this. And there's so much negativity towards iRacing right now because of what happened.
Be careful
Who did
when you
nothing.
Never gauge opinion on a comment section. Squeaky
That's
wheel.
true.
Squeaky
keyboard
wheel.
warriors.
It's ugly in those comments, dude. It's real ugly.
Yeah, but those are the guys who are going to be commenting. All the people are like, other than us, most of the people are like, most of the pros are not going to be as fired up to go comment. So,
Well, and I pointed out a tweet that I had recognized this week, and I'm not going to talk about it, but there was a professional sports player that posted on his own personal page that he'd like to get in a box or in a UFC ring and kick Kyle Larson's butt. How is that any better than what Larson did? He's not any better.
Yeah, that was inappropriate.
So you can be a keyboard warrior or a phone warrior all you want, but this doesn't. Jenna Fry making those comments, it's easier for her to say that too. She's coming in and she's got at least some content. She could be sitting at home having nothing to talk about.
Right, at least she has a story to write. All right, let's keep moving. IndyCar, a great write-up from Motorsports, NBC Sports about Felix Rosenqvist, and it was a good little article, Greg. I thought it was nice to hear about what Felix thinks about iRacing, his competition with Sage and Will Power, and who's got the upper hand.
Well, and I took out a little part here where he's kind of feeling, or he feels like when you're sitting around, you're becoming dumb for a while and not doing anything. And for him, his biggest challenge is mentally and how he wants to stay sane. So he's kind of using this as a platform to do it, and he's done a heck of a job already in the couple races that we've gone through for the IndyCar series here. I honestly didn't know his name until he was competing, and he showed tremendous speed for the first couple weeks here.
Okay, and let's talk about the race. And Simon Pagenaud, the Frenchman, gets it done. And this guy is amazing. I love this guy.
Well, and let's back it up just a little bit here. We're not going to go too in depth here because this wasn't a very complex race. This wasn't last week's race at the road course. This was an oval with fuel mileage. It had a wreck first lap that took out a bunch of cars, and after that, it became a fuel strategy race because of the cars that pitted on that first lap or the first caution. And then there was nothing else after that, and it came down to Earnhardt, Simon Pagenaud,
The
Scott
Australian
Walker.
guy.
They were all saving fuel, and the guys that were out front for most of that race, Sage Care and Will Power, they had a difficult time trying to get back up, and it didn't turn out the way that those guys wanted. Dale just, to be honest, watching Dale's highlights of that race, looks like he was out for a Sunday drive for when he was out doing it. Like he kind of just nonchalantly saved fuel and was able to do it. But Simon Pagenaud, like, he didn't expect to win. He just was having fun. And I think what you're talking about, what you like about him, Mike, here is on his Twitter page, they show him winning here on his stream, and then his wife walks in with a bottle of champagne.
Right, and he decided he was going to spray it, but I guess he decided not to and ruined his furniture and iRacing equipment.
I was going to say, it's okay to spray around a race car. It's not okay to spray around electronics.
But he's got his fire suit on. He's got a head sock on. I mean, he wears gloves. He's a beast.
Yeah, it definitely is. He's a character, and it was a good race. I mean, that's a good track to race at. And kudos to putting on a good event there. I don't know if you guys, before going and listening to Dale's highlights here that he put on the Dirty Mo page here. What's his Steven Steffen, his spotter / strategist, I guess, for that race. They have a highlight pack talking about it, and the thing that got me the most in it is near the end there when the leaders that had led most of the race knew they were going to lose to fuel mileage. They started complaining and asking iRacing, and it was specifically Greg West, who was the iRacing control for that race, to throw a caution. They were complaining because they were going to lose to fuel mileage, and they thought it was unfair that the guys at the beginning got to pit on lap one. Well,
everybody could have pitted.
Strategy. Yeah. They just were able to save fuel. It happened the way that the amount of laps they had for that race is how it worked out.
Sounds just like real races.
Well, yeah. And it sounds like, from what you can hear here, is the guy that was, Will Power, who was very adamant on the radio that they should throw a caution. He's had some really bad weeks on the chat in iRacing, it sounds like.
Yeah, he had chat ban for one race, and
they obviously gave him back. Maybe Greg West will be regretting that, because him and I can't remember. I think it was Newgard or someone that chimed in and wanted a caution, and they said, we're not throwing a caution unless there's a big wreck. And then he goes, okay, somebody caused a big wreck. Like, it was out of hand.
I kind of wish this wasn't a fuel mileage race because I think the racing would have been a little bit better. When they raced at Texas in that one event I saw, man, that was good. I can't tell you how good that was. But these IndyCar guys, they're getting it done, and they're taking it serious, and nobody's screwing around. And they're making NASCAR look like a joke because these guys got it together.
Well, the other thing is Michigan's not the great. If you listen to how some of the guys explain that race, that setup being a fixed setup for that race, the one problem with the fixed setups in the IndyCar is you can't do the weight jacker. So when you're up behind somebody, you can't adjust it to try and loosen it up while you're just chasing that car. That's the one downside to the IndyCar, not having the weight jacker to move that stuff around to help you out. Whereas in an open set, you could make it tighter and looser to help you in the traffic there. So you're kind of stuck. So Michigan, I think, was too fast. The reason Texas was so good is because they would have to get off the throttle, and there was more banking to hold the cars. I think that's why it's such a better race for you get at those mile and a halves than the big Michigan track, because they were just wearing the right front out because they were so tight in traffic.
Yeah, and the next race is Saturday. Twin Ring Motegi was the one that got picked. And next up was that IndyCar race at Texas, which was streamed on April 13th. Joseph Newgarden had it on his YouTube, and they also did a broadcast at speed51.com, and that's where I was watching it, and boy, I was entertained.
And I guess Oliver Askew took home the win there.
Yeah, he was looking good. He's coming up from Indy Lights, and so he's new in the IndyCar series this year, which they haven't even really started the season, but he was aggressive, man. He was getting it done.
Yeah, they haven't even debuted the car yet. They haven't even started the season, so it's kind of like, they haven't even got going as a sport.
He actually got on the outside of Will Power for the lead, and just had just enough momentum on the outside, which was really tough, to get just in front of him and then come down across Will's nose. He was clear, but not by a hair. And you could tell just by the way Will was driving that Will didn't like it.
Which one did you guys get to hear any of the driver chat from these races? Because which one of these was the one that Dale Jr. was talking about in his podcast, where their driver chat was crazy?
That was a Michigan race.
That was a Michigan race.
Actually, it was a practice.
There's something up with those, the way that they talk in those. I think it's, they're so competitive.
Well, the Indy cars are international too. You got to remember that it's international crowd.
And international drivers too,
That's
right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
Was it Will Power that he said was going nuts and was like calling out iRacing wanting cautions for his fuel strategy?
Yeah. Now, this last post here that we have for the IndyCar series is probably the guy that I always thought at some point would translate into this as maybe doing the double duty on the IndyCar or the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600 weekend, but it looks like Rowdy Kyle Busch is going to be running this weekend at Twin Rig.
awesome. I love the paint job. It's Rowdy energy drink, right?
He's really pumping that drink with all the stuff that he's doing.
Man, those cars look so good with the little thing over the helmet. What do they call it?
Windscreen?
Windscreen. Yeah, I love it. It just makes it look really racy.
It was the best design, and I'm glad that as a safety precaution, that's where they went. I'm glad they didn't go the F1 way.
Okay, let's switch gears. Chris, IROC.
Yeah, so Wednesday, well, actually, I raced Wednesday night, but then Thursday I always sit down to watch the Wednesday night's racing, and I sat down and expected to see some more of the World of Outlaws stuff that they had shown in the last couple of weeks. But because I hadn't paid much attention to the media, I just hadn't been caught up on stuff. But instead, I sat down to these IROC races, which was freaking awesome. Like, it gave me goosebumps. It was so awesome to see. They used all those old IROC paints and had drivers from all different disciplines running a couple of races. The first being the UMP Modifieds at Volusia, and a second in the GTE cars at Lime Rock. And man, what a cool idea! This when you guys talk about stuff they can do during the week, I know we're going to be racing a lot on Wednesdays, but this is something I'd like to see them doing every single Wednesday, forever.
Star-studded lineup too.
Yeah,
It's basically kind of like Pacific Majors, except with the big boys.
yeah, exactly what IROC was back then. They had guys from, it was usually a little stock car heavy, but they had guys from everywhere. And then this, you could really get guys from everywhere because they wouldn't have to come in to your country to race. You just hop on the sim and you're racing any car, any track. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Especially the other cool thing they did was most of the guys that were in the first race were in the second race. So you went from a one car track combo to a completely different one, and that was really cool.
Yeah, it wasn't traditional stock car IROC. It was dirt modified at Volusia, and then GTE cars at Lime Rock.
Yeah, and both of them were great races. Chase Briscoe dominated the first race, the UMP Modifieds at Volusia. Will Power was fast. He was actually coming after Briscoe. I mean, I can't remember, maybe he started his run from maybe fourth or fifth and had ran down Briscoe, his big lead, and then a caution came out. So I don't know if Briscoe was saving a bit or if Power was just that good once, on old hot tires. But man, it was pretty impressive. He wouldn't have been one of the ones I really expected to be up there. They put Regan Smith in the Warriors seat this week. It wasn't impressive. He hit everything but the pace car, I think, and that's only because the iRacing pace car is drive-through. But he wrecked Scott Speed in that race, who was one of my picks.
My hero, Juan Pablo Montoya, was in the race, and that blew me away.
Oh yeah, he was actually pretty impressive too. I mean, he drove that race a lot like he did in NASCAR. I mean, he was really leaning on guys, but he, wasn't wrecking them. Just really aggressive. But he was a lot of fun to watch.
Good old jet dryer.
Yeah, there was no jet dryers in iRacing, which is awesome.
Yeah, Kurt Busch, Ron Capps. I mean, it was a star-studded field for sure.
Yeah, and it's so much fun to watch those guys. I said, really, and most of them did a really good job. I can't, other than Regan, I can't remember one that stood out that was, really Bloomquisting up the show. But then the second race, the GTEs at Lime Rock, Scott Speed won that race, but that was he got Regan Smith right off the start. I can't remember. I think Regan Smith just ran him over like when the field didn't get going. I think maybe Smith spun the tires. I don't know. I remember he caused it, and I think Briscoe was all the way in the back of the field when he made his run, but he ended up driving through all of them. It was a 15-minute timed race, which was interesting to see on there. That was cool and different. But yeah, he earned it on that one.
Okay. Let's keep moving. What's next? David, the IMSA iRacing Pro Series was just earlier. Evan was just finishing that before he came on.
Yeah, we just missed it. I may try to check in on it tomorrow. Watch the replay. They're still running, I think, the GTEs only, and they were at Laguna Seca. I'm sure it was an exciting race. I like to drive the GTEs, so I'll give it a follow.
And then Greg, Rallycross, All-Star Invitational.
Yeah, so they had the first round at Hell, Lincoln or Lake Benin, or what is it? And surprise, surprise, Mitchell DeZong was perfect through all the heats and everything. And that, he's unbeatable on that dirt. So.
Mitchell DeJong.
And then Scott Speed finished second, and then was that Connor Martle finished third.
Yeah, I was wondering about Sammy Matty Trogan, the teenager who was so fast last year. I didn't see him in the results, but I was wondering how he ran.
I don't think he made it out of his heat.
Ooh.
If I remember correctly, but I could be wrong there.
Okay, Chris, take us back to something normal. The monthly highlight reel.
Yeah, just another well put together highlight reel from iRacing. This is March's, and I kind of wish it'd be cool if they would break these into a couple highlights at a time and sneak those in as commercials or in some of the racing that we've been seeing during the week, because there's a lot of good ones in here. A lot of them that make you just want to go race that car. You watch this thing, it's like, oh yeah, this is modifieds. I need to go race this. Oh man, that stuff looks fun. I need to go race the Rallycross again.
That modified pileup is pretty massive.
Where he goes through the middle, I love that. Yeah, there were some really good ones in here, guys. Don't forget to check it out.
That modified one is full send though. That is no braking and just on.
ARCA all the way.
Yeah, those dirt street stocks look fun too. Yeah, like I said, all of it just makes me go race them all.
Okay. And then Norris tells us why iRacing is better than F1 2019.
So, Lando Norris was talking to racefan.net, explaining how most of F1 drivers prefer iRacing over F1 real world drivers. And he said that F1 2019 is too much like an arcade game, which is why real drivers prefer rival titles such as iRacing, according to him. You don't drive them anything like you do a real car, Norris explained. iRacing is more like a simulation program, so you have to better feel through the wheel. It feels more realistic. Basically, it's more like a simulator in terms of how it feels through the wheel, and the setup changes and stuff. The game handling is why Max, I guess he's talking about his buddy Max Verstappen, doesn't play said Norris, because it's sorry, I couldn't speak there, because it's nothing like the actual car, whereas iRacing is a little bit like the actual car.
Just a little bit.
It's good to it's good to have verification. Obviously, his sponsors and everything like that for F1 and stuff would probably be telling him to use the F1 2019, because obviously that's sanctioned in the F1, and they have been doing racing on it as well. But it's good to hear him talk about iRacing.
Well, it's also good. It's also good to hear that Max is. I don't want any part of that.
Well, he's been on a whole bunch of different series, and we'll be talking about one of them in a little bit here.
I saw him last week at the Glen, I believe, in a Le Mans race.
Yeah, he's getting around. Somebody else who's getting around is Chase Briscoe. He won the NBC Sports Esports Short Track Challenge Championship, holding off William Byron at the virtual Martinsville Speedway. And man, he did really well in that IROC event, and then he won this one as well. And then Chris, we got IndyCar taking flight.
Yeah,
hold my beer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, forum post by Christian Steele. He has a screenshot of him clearing the pylon at Indy and IndyCar, probably by a good couple car lengths. I wish I would have had the whole video to see how he did it, but reading the responses, it looks like it must be a known bug. But if somebody said, now you got to stick the landing, that would have been more impressive.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going up or going down.
Yeah,
Looks like a foul car to me.
The question is, if he actually had a beer in the cockpit, how long would it, would the G-forces keep the beer from spilling?
It would start spilling as soon as it comes down.
There you
I
go.
don't think it would until it actually hit, because all of it's being pulled at gravity by the same speed.
Okay, next up, iRacing Endurance Series.
Hopefully you don't hit the ground too quick on this and kind of approach a more endurance attitude, because you got to go 12 hours. They're doing an over the year 2020 iRacing Endurance Series, and it's coming up starting actually Saturday. It's going to be running the GTE cars, GT3, GT4, and TCR. The first event is in April, and the points will carry over all season, all year, kind of like NIS and the Indianapolis or the IndyCar Racing Series does as well. They're running 4 tracks: Suzuka, Silverstone, Barcelona, and Coda.
Get it, guys. I don't think I'm running this, but
We might, but I know me and Richie from over at Elite West are running on Saturday. We're doing Road America in Endurance LMS, so I don't know if it'll get in the way of each other.
all right, let's keep moving. Quick hit here. iRacing's Instagram page hit 100,000 followers. I thought that was interesting. That's quite a big number. And
It's good to see that milestone. I'm wondering, obviously social media here kind of helped that go. When did you find this, that it went was it just after the weekend?
it was 4 days ago.
Okay, so it's they probably got a boost over the weekend of people with the events that were going on.
Right, good or bad, right?
Good or bad publicity is still publicity.
And Greg, we got our iRacing our iRacers Lounge previous guest, Dave Cam, doing a video for iRacing.
Yeah, he was on his YouTube channel. Dave did a wonderful job explaining of, the easiest way to get out of the rookie class license in the road, and a lot of people don't realize that you could finish dead last in all of those races and still come out and get rid of your rookie license. Like, a lot of people just try and win thinking that's going to do it, but it's the incidents that get you out of it. So he showed a quick race that he did, 15-lap race, and how he just took it easy. He started from the pits, rolled off quick lightly. He basically just, it looked effortless the way he was going around the track, and he was just ended up gaining positions one after another, and by the end he was racing for the lead again. Obviously Dave's pretty good at with that car, that track and stuff. But no, and he gave a quick tip at the end, which I didn't realize that that's how it worked. But I guess what he was saying is you go around and complete and come back to the pits, but the iRacing incident total doesn't get totaled until the last person is off the track, is what he was saying in it. I don't know if the truth is to that, but if that's true, that's something I've learned.
I believe that was recently changed in a recent patch.
It's been like that since I started.
Yeah, it was that way for a long time, and then I'll have to go back and dig through the patch notes. I seem to remember when the last year or so, them actually fixing that, where you would no longer collect X's after you pass the checkered.
Okay, well, I didn't know that was how it was previously. I just knew that you could still accumulate an X afterwards, but I didn't realize it was because of how many people, and I thought it was a time issue, wasn't it?
It's until everybody's done, the race is still active. Yeah,
I thought
that was. We'll have to check, or maybe a listener may remember. I remember sometime in the last 4 patches reading something about them doing away with this challenge that you can get X's after the checkered.
I thought this was a good video for. This is actually the iRacing YouTube channel, and they put up Dave's video about how to get out of rookies on it. And I think it's the first time I've seen that, where they brought up somebody who's like kind of outside of iRacing, to put up some good content. But I think Dave is a perfect choice for this.
Might be did they not hire him recently? I could have sworn that he was on their podcast, like that he had done content like this for him, and that they were actually just hiring him. I might be imagining that, but yeah, if not, maybe
they should hire him. Yeah,
maybe if not, it was a premonition.
Well, essentially, anytime you're worried about safety rating, if you're really worried about safety rating and you need to boost it up, you simply have to stop worrying about iRating.
I just don't get hit. All right, let's keep moving. David, would you buy a lifetime iRacing subscription?
No.
I don't think I would either.
Why would you buy a lifetime of anything that's not guaranteed? At any point, we lease all this stuff. At any point, they could just say that the service is done tomorrow, and they don't have to give any of it back.
Right.
And what incentive would they have to continue driving the new content if it wasn't based on subscription? Really, the software that gets pushed out just for release, and then they're going to go ahead and go on to the next release, and then it ends up being like all the stuff that's manufactured, where it's not built to last and it's not updated, and you have to buy a new game anyway 50 days later, or 50 months later, or whatever, or weeks.
Well, say like, what's the subscription now? Like a year is like what, 100 and something. So say they make the lifetime one like $1,000. Like, just hypothetically, okay, you buy a lifetime thing for $1,000. Okay, that's 10 years technically, or just under 10 years. It's not plausible it's not smart business for iRacing to do it that way either.
Right.
Because then they're losing out on money.
$500.
They need the money to trickle in, not come in all at once, right?
Well, I'm sure there's tax code implications there as well.
It was just a hypothetical somebody put in the forums. He was speculating, hey, $5,000. lifetime membership. I don't think I would do it because you can't guarantee they'll be here 10 years from now.
One thing that they could do though with some of that money they brought in is hire a new position, Mike.
Yeah, so they got some help wanted out of the Boston office, a senior 3D car artist slash assistant outsource manager. It's a unique opportunity to participate in the creation of artwork for the sim and also guide the work of others. You'll be working on creating race car 3D models, and another large part will be involving helping our car art director manage the process of outsourcing the graphical work.
So that sounds like a good position to have. So they'll be designing the cars that need to go into this next topic, right, Chris?
Yeah, next tweet from Dale Jr. Saying, I'm hearing North Wilkesboro will be ready for a possible June release. I can't wait. For now, all I got for you is this cool screenshot. And he tweeted out a picture of the North Wilkesboro front stretch, the grandstands and the flag stands, just missing some fake fans and a glitchy flag man.
I think they fixed the flag man, but kind of cool to see Dale actually leaking photos.
Yeah, it was really neat. It does look really cool, too. It's really neat to see that track, I don't know, kind of alive again.
I'd like to see, like, obviously most of the tracks they've scanned are real life, are like tracks that are always, they're all in use right now. I'd like to see what the photos they took in the process. Like, I would like to see a video made of how the whole process of going through this thing was done afterwards to resurrect something that isn't raced on anymore.
Documentary soon.
I'd watch that.
Okay, and hope
You said
were.
something. Yeah, you said something about glitches. Well, sometimes IMSA servers glitch as well. And there's a post at some point earlier this week. The sessions were not launching, but if that happened, you did not lose iRatings, as the sessions never occurred. It wasn't related to the new UI or the website. There was an issue with the scheduler not placing the races where they wanted to be.
Seems like this has been happening a few times recently.
Well, did you ever go back and check to see if that other server that you had that problem with, Mike, ever finished?
I haven't, no.
It's we were just talking about that in one of the NIS races this week, or A Opens, with just in general driver chat. Something went on, and in one of the races that it was the pace car actually jacked up and everything, and they were still in there racing until they basically kicked them all out. So I think that one's also dead and didn't end up counting for anyone.
Okay, well, they got work to do there. Greg, OBS audio captures everything people are talking about.
Wow, this has probably become more of a topic since the incident on the weekend, but Chris A. Walker kind of posted up about that. He was wondering if there's a way to isolate certain things to play, because he's using his headset, and OBS takes whatever's in your headset and translates it through. But is there a way to take out programs that are running in the background, like TeamSpeak and Caps and things like that? And I was actually interested by this too, because I got to find a way to. I use my headset and have all the spotter and all that stuff pumped through, and it goes into my OBS. But I'd like to take our TeamSpeak out because of obviously incidents that happen and things like that. Nobody needs to hear what some of the things we talk about on our TeamSpeak and stuff like that.
Especially you.
The Voicemeeter Banana is a product, I guess, that they're talking about here, and he was just asking everybody's opinion on it to do it. So I don't know the outcome of what they were talking about here. I don't know if you ever actually tried much of it, but I'm going to look into this and see how it works.
It's
Well,
good.
I have
David and I
virtual
have been
audio
using
set
that.
up.
That's just the fancy version of what we've been using, David, with
Okay,
the
yeah.
voice meter stuff. Yep.
It just you use virtual audio cable, and it just creates another output and input in your sound properties, and you through some basically virtual cable patching, you make some stuff go through OBS, and you make the other stuff go direct to your headphones, and boom, problem solved.
Yeah,
Virtual
Greg's banana
audio cable.
stuff. Yeah, Greg's Banana stuff is the full software of that stuff, though. It would be probably way easier to use than try to. Well, for me, in my brain, I had to I had to map out how I was going to use my virtual cables. It would have been easier to use that interface.
I didn't have to map it out, but one of the patches changed all the sound settings, and I had to go back and reconfigure it. And those settings are kind of buried. You have to right click and left click and right click and left click to get to the right screen.
Yeah, it does work well though. But yeah, I think if you're going to be doing a lot of it, yeah, spend a few bucks and just get that whole interface and make it easy on yourself.
So you have to pay for it?
You can use one virtual cable, I think, for free, but then if you want to add more, it costs a little bit. And then what was that program called again, Greg?
Voice Banana? Or
Yeah,
Voice Meter Banana?
Yeah, Voice Meter Pro, Voice Meter Banana. It's all kind of like, I don't know a whole lot about the stuff, but that's their software basically. And it's like, it gives you a whole mixing table basically to do this stuff. And it's not, I can't remember the exact price, but it wasn't super expensive. We're talking, and I think with the Voice Meter, maybe it was like a donation deal too. I don't remember. It's not expensive.
There you go.
Donate. It's donate.
Yeah, see.
All right, supercars.
Yeah, so this was a tweet I found of Max Verstappen and Shane or
Van Gisbergen.
Van Giersberger battling at is it Catalina, I believe, is where they're at.
Yeah, Catalunya.
And
The wine mixer.
it's Van Giesenberg setting him up down the long straightaway, and the slipstream with those V8 cars really worked well, and it showed how pros set up for a pass and how easily they were able to complete the pass and just drive like professionals in there. There wasn't any bumping forward. It was just an outbraking.
Okay, so don't say it's easy to pass Max Verstappen at Spain, but yeah, Shane Van Gisbergen made it look easy.
And then he took the win for that race as well.
Boy, can you imagine his confidence to beat a Formula One star like Max?
Well, Max said he really enjoys those cars. It was fun for him to come down and race in that series with them.
Okay, so next up we got an announcement about the 2020 IndyCar iRacing Series from Greg West in the forums. I think this came out yesterday. But it said it's going to closely follow the IndyCar schedule as of April 15th, 2020. It will include most events prior to the June restart date. And so, yeah, it's going to be 5 different time slots through the week. And there'll be 3 drops. License is D40 road or better.
And this is a series I'm going to be participating in. Bobby's painting or helping me finish up my paint for my car for it.
So this is kind of like NIS for IndyCar, right?
Yes.
I wonder if there'll be some pros in this, since they can't race the real thing. The real season would be starting up, and this would be a nice little,
Yeah, because they're missing a couple tracks at the beginning because I can't do St. Petersburg, obviously, and Long Beach isn't in there as well at the early in the season, so they're kind of missing some, but they got most of the schedule, which is really, really nice.
Open sets. Go get it, guys.
I think some of it they did. It's not a full-on thing of following the season because I don't believe they don't go to Montreal. They don't. Do they race at Richmond in real life? I can't.
They used to.
And Gateway they used to. I don't know if they still do
No,
anymore.
they don't. No, I think those are just fillers,
Maybe they're filling the weeks that they were supposed to be at a certain track.
or off weeks.
True.
And next, the Indy 500.
Yeah, this is the only time you're going to catch me in an Indy car. But yeah, that'll be coming up here shortly. And that's another one where, this isn't going to happen in real life. This has been postponed. So, it could be
August.
a lot of guys are really going to get fired up to run this thing, I think.
Bet you there's going to be a pro one. There'll be a full
probably.
pro split.
I'm sure. Oh, I would think so. And they have time to do it right too. It's not going to be, it's not dumped in their lap. They have time to prep for this, and they might run it on, the weekend that the, Memorial Day weekend. Our weekend for the race is going to be the weekend of the 15th through the 17th.
Less than a
Time
month
slots.
away.
What's that?
Less than a month away.
Yeah, yeah. So
Why
definitely get
why then
practicing.
though, Chris? Why not during when we normally have the 500? Isn't that a week early or something?
Well, it depends
Well,
on.
every special event has been a week early, except for
Yeah, they
NIS.
always do everything a week
Okay,
early
okay.
for
I
whatever
think
reason.
they do it so that you don't actually miss the racing too, right? Like they don't want, the Coke 600 would be on a Sunday night. Like people would be raced. Like I think they try and avoid the weekends of the actual race, the big ones.
Yeah, and I've always been kind of torn on that too because I get that and I come from that side, but at the same time I get fired up when I watch a race on Sunday, and it would be kind of cool to keep, for me to race that through for the week after. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, for whatever reason, this stuff's always on the weekend before.
Well, and they got the one that special event that we're probably going to be able to race, but it's going to be very hard for them to do in real life if this epidemic doesn't or the pandemic doesn't calm down. Would be Le Mans, because Le Mans is on streets and they schedule it to do it, so it's hard to reschedule and plan everything around closing those streets up.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to run this one, the Indy 500. There'll be a race Friday at 9 p.m. and Saturday 2 races, one at 9 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. and then a race Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and open to a D 4.0 or basically a C license and a full length race. So get practicing. It's going to be a long one.
Let's see if I can defend my 2 years in a row finishing second.
And so I was kind of, I'm always kind of half out of it when you're talking about the IndyCar stuff. Were you talking you can't adjust the weight jacker now, like quickly in a race, so you just can't get that
Unfixed.
tight?
It's the same as us, like when we're racing.
Okay,
the
so on
cars, you
open,
can't do
you still
wedge and
can.
things like that, and tire pressures and stuff. They in the fixed things they can't do the weight jacker, but those will be open, right? So that's
Yeah, those are open.
you'll be able to do all the adjustments in race, and then
Very cool.
yeah,
Okay, David, we have the most realistic sim ever.
This is just, I'm trying to come up with a silly pun here. It's pretty crazy that you could actually break your sim rig from a wreck. And at this Monza race, the streamer, his rig broke. It was a faulty part, and he's already got it replaced. But yeah, he wrecked, and then his rig wrecked, his real rig.
It's none other than IMSA star Jordan
yeah,
Taylor in a Simcraft rig.
He was quick to point out that it was not a part of the Simcraft rig itself, or it was some other piece. He said non-Simcraft part.
Oh, man, that would be, that would be a butt puckering moment there when all of a sudden it lets go and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so you can see the replay where he's in the corner, it has a camera on him, and you see him getting jerked around as he's getting, wrecked. And then the whole rig just kind of turns over on its side, it looks like.
He's lucky he didn't put the rim and stuff through the monitors. Because it looks like the rim came, because that quick release.
Well, it has a lift up where on those rigs where you lift it up out of the way so you can crawl into the seat.
Yeah, I'd just be worried about hitting those monitor screens with it. Like the way it kind of just lunged to the side there.
Well, no better person for this to happen to than Jordan Taylor. If you follow him on Twitter, this is the kind of thing that happens to him.
He's funny because he kind of at the end there, he kind of just nonchalantly goes, "We wrecked."
All right, let's go into the next one, release notes. We had a release today, patch 5, a bunch of changes to the beta UI for AI. I'm not going to really go through the details there because I'm not a big fan of the beta, but let's keep going. Protest. It says the protest model window now dynamically validates as the form is being filled out. And so that makes it easier to file protest, I guess. They also have a thing called Trusted Spotters. It's a new feature that has been added. It's available through the Beta UI and the Classic member site. It's an extension of the Friends feature. You may now designate any friend as a trusted spotter. This allows them to join you as a spotter in any session. Normal spotter rules still apply. Trusted spotters do not need a crew password, but if the hosted session has a password, the trusted spotter must use it. That's kind of cool.
So basically, it's another friends list that it's a quick
Good
bypass
friends.
list to so they don't have to have your password, right? Unless it's something that's a password protected room.
So I would just put like only Tifosi team members as trusted spotters, whoever you
trust us?
Well, sometimes.
Not enough to host us at the Phoenix race.
Ouch. All right.
Except there is NASCAR.
Now this one has been coming for a while, but it's finally here. Qualifying conduct scrutiny. A new system is now available to run during qualifying sessions to help prevent unrealistic preparation exploits. Generally speaking, the officials expect a driver to pull out under control, get up to speed relatively quickly, and complete their qualifying laps in a timely and controlled manner. The system first applies a furled black flag as a warning to drivers who have not been compliant with these expectations. If the behavior continues, a black flag will be issued and the driver DQ'd from the qualifying session. So if you linger or screw around, you're getting the black flag.
So basically, it's kind of putting a little bit of a timer on you to get to the green flag.
I think once you roll off, if you're just putting around, you'll get a black flag.
Yeah, minimum speed.
Is it just timer, or do they actually have some AI judgment elements that it's actually trying to determine if you're burning out or spinning out?
It doesn't say, and I think they don't say it specifically, so you don't know what the criteria is.
Because I'm wondering what happens if you accidentally spin it off pit road, then quick reset or something. Does that count? Like, there's going to be a whole bunch of things here we're going to learn pretty quickly with it.
Yeah, and apparently there's different levels of this scrutiny: permissive, lenient, moderate, strict, or severe. So what's the answer? Don't screw around in qualifying, guys. All right, let's see what else they had here. Some race control stuff. 2 new admin controls for controlling the timing of the start of a race. You can do a grid set, space in, which is how many minutes the countdown timer is on grid. That's kind of cool. Let's see what else. They fixed the cautions do not count. And they fixed the problem with the IndyCar pit stops, and several audio sounds have been adjusted. A lot of the cars, little adjustments in drafting and different things.
They did not. The first thing I looked for in the cars was whether or not they rolled back the 919 nerf, and the answer is no.
And notice Richmond and Talladega have some graphical updates for the upcoming races, obviously. Talladega says additional foam barriers have been added and some advertisements have been updated.
I wonder if they're having a little bit more time to do, in some ways, to do some of these patches because they're not able to actually go anywhere to doing these scans. And so it's shifted their focus a little.
All right, now in the interest of time, we're actually going to skip hardware software. Let's go into podcast housekeeping. Don't forget to email me at iRacersLounge@gmail.com your story ideas. It's been great getting links from listeners about that. It's very helpful. Take 2 seconds and send me a link, guys, and we're glad to have the help. Don't forget we're on Performance Motorsports Network on their 24/7 Motorsports channel. Check them out. Now, let's jump to results. Let's finish up the week here. Wednesday Open, David Hall, P20.
Yeah, I just had this over-aggressive guy. He He rear-ended me into the guy in front of me, going on a restart, going into turn one, and then after doing that, dove under me and hooked me and wrecked me, and it was just a nightmare trying to get back to a decent finish after that. The set was good, I just didn't get to use it.
Yeah, and he was blaming you for the wreck, if I recall.
He never said a word.
Oh.
Couldn't get an answer.
And then Greg, you got P18. Should have been top 5.
Yeah, that race was, we had a long green flag run for almost 70 laps, and I kind of just, I was really, really loose off the corner. I know you were playing probably about the same, we had about the same issue with the way that setup was, Mike, and I started adjusting on it, and I started moving forward, and after we did that long green flag run, it was just caution after caution, and I was getting involved in a lot of stuff, and I don't even know what happened. Like when I got to the point where it hands out a black flag for how many incidents you had, I was like, I can't even believe I'm here already. But there was a lot of contacts that shouldn't have been 4Xs, but I ended up ending that race by having 24 of 25 incidents, and I was pretty disappointed with that. I'll take the P18. I just don't know what happened with those incidents. It just was a bad race, and I'm hoping I got some ideas for tomorrow night's race, so working on that still.
Yeah, I had a horrible race. I mean, it was pretty good going for a while there, but then it was a do not finish. I got caught up in other people's wrecks, just like you were saying. I wasn't even involved. It was like they were in front of me and I couldn't miss it. 3 different times, and then it blew up on me, so I couldn't finish. Tom Drilling, he got P24, said he got wrecked early. Couldn't make up the 6 laps. I fell down to repair the car. Nick Williams got a P21. He got up to P15. We got collected by 2 cars to my right, bouncing off the turn 2 wall. Learned a lot of info for Friday night and felt good for no practice. Tony Rochette, P35. Wrecked out by passing a lap car as he bounced off the wall and put me in the wall on lap 25. Boy, he can't catch a break. And then Chris, you wrecked out too.
Yeah, I was in the same race as Greg, and yeah, it was weird because we had a really nice green flag run there at the beginning, and we were starting to talk fuel, and then we had a caution, and it was just one after the other, but nobody was getting wrecked out. Just wrecked, and so it was just the same thing over and over, just caution after another, and eventually I got one that I didn't survive.
Okay, and then David, you were able to run today, P18 top split. Good run.
Yeah, I had a faster car, but had a caution in front early where I thought all the cars went low, so I was going high. It was slowed down mostly. But something happened on the track still too. The car in front of me slammed on the brakes, and I tagged him. It was only 12 seconds of damage, but it caused me to overheat for the rest of the race.
All right, and then Tom Drilling ran. He got his P5, maybe light at the end of the tunnel, and my slide in the NIS is done. First top 5 with the team, pretty happy. Good job, Tom. And with that, let's jump to final thoughts. Chris Scales.
We missed a result.
What did we miss?
I got a few things down in the official series, actually.
Oh, that's right. Greg, you've been doing Rallycross.
David, you go first.
Yeah, I picked up my second win at Watkins Glen over the weekend, and that was my 50th career road win.
You were farming, right?
Man, I was just getting so many good finishes there. It was a popular track, being the Glen. A lot of people running there, a lot of people running the LMP, and I'm not as good as the super fast guys there, but I was better than a lot. And every race, I was either I was at the top of a lower split, or I was finishing really well, even with some of what we call the aliens in there, and I gained like 500 I rating.
Get it while you can. And then, Greg, you were farming as well.
Yeah, I was having fun in the IRX Rallycross series, and man, it's kind of like what Chris was saying there earlier, though. Like when you see a car, I was watching some of the Rallycross races, and it's like I want to do that, and so I hopped in. hopped in the other day after painting what I think is one of my better paint jobs of cars that I have here, and started racing. And I've got 3 wins in 8 races, and I'm doing pretty good on the rally side. So I'm gonna keep doing it as much as I can. I'm actually signed up for the one in a couple minutes here to go after the podcast.
Go stack them up, man. Let's get you out of rookie. All right, now final thoughts.
Already out of rookie.
Oh, okay, there you go. Chris Scales.
I want to thank Tony Groves real quick. He hasn't been on the podcast. Work's been busy for him as a pimp in Canada, in Corona. But work's been busy, but he's still been helping out in the background with the podcast and getting the script ready for us and stuff. So I want to appreciate him and remind people of the iRacers Lounge Aftermath so they don't get mad at me again.
Not this week, but next for the Aftermath, right?
Yep, you can download it always from everywhere. Listen to the old ones.
Yeah, thanks to Tony. The show notes, guys, you can get that in the description of the podcast. There's a link. And Tony and Chris, they do a great job cleaning up my chicken scratches that I kind of put in there throughout the week to make it look presentable for everybody. So thank you to both you guys for working on that. All right, Greg Hectus, final thought.
I'm just really enjoying the rally part of it. I felt a lot better with the cup race this week. I'm better on these short tracks with braking, so I can't wait for the NIS tomorrow night. Yeah, so you want to come watch me race tomorrow? I'm at twitch.tv/frozen cactus, frozen with 2 O's, cactus with 2 K's, and just trying to just have fun now. I'm kind of just enjoying some of these different series.
Okay, David Hall, final thought.
My Twitch stream is a little easier to spell. It's twitch.tv/mixmage. Come on there, chat with me. I need action, especially when I'm at the road courses and there's those long straights or the Caution Fest that is Richmond.
Maybe you can debate with him if that was his fault or someone else's fault.
That's come up quite a few times, especially actually that happened in the race where I got dumped by one of the pros. Several of y'all looked at it, and one of my viewers actually jumped in and looked at it immediately because I had 8 minutes of repairs, I think, and we went back and watched the replay, and he was like, "Yeah, he just ran right through you twice."
All right, there you go. My final thoughts, man, a tough week for iRacing. Just the visuals of what happened with the Kyle Larson incident, and dang it, Kyle Larson, I'm just upset with you that you kind of put iRacing in this bad light, but it happens, and people are going to move on. Life goes on. I hope Kyle is able to recover from this and continue a good career in motorsports. Oversaturation is what I'm thinking too with this iRacing stuff and NASCAR on NBC, Fox, and everything that's going on. But maybe it's like Evan said, we're too close to it. We're in the midst of it. We see all the different series, and from an outside view, maybe it looks different, but I just think we're too close to it, and it feels like oversaturation, but maybe it isn't. But at this point, I'm rambling.
There is a vacuum, though, because there's nothing else.
That's right, and who knows what's going to happen when the vacuum's over, when everything goes back to normal. That's really what the question is. What's going to happen? I guess we'll find out. And with that, we'll see you on the track. Later.
Thank you for listening to the iRacers Lounge podcast. Make sure to go subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play, Facebook, and Twitter. See you on the track.
All right.